Alright, here's a video on what it takes to make cruise control work in your manual transmission equipped 4200 swap. In my case, it's in a G-body Cutlass. It wasn't too hard. There's definitely a few hoops I had to jump through. I'm not sure if all this was entirely necessary, but this is what it took for me to make it work in my particular scenario, I guess. Go straight to the wiring. Here's kind of my notes. Basically, first step, you want a battery positive signal to go to pin 7 on the X1 connector of the ECM, which, if I'm not mistaken, is this the smallest forwardmost plug right here. But that basically gets power with the brake lights. And then pin 46, which is a purple wire, wants to kind of see the inverse of that. So it wants to have power all the time and see that power be removed with the brake lights applied. So to accomplish that, you use a 5-pin relay. As you can see here, this is how I wired it. The purple pin 46 wire goes to the 87A position on the relay. Your brake light positive signal, the same signal that you're feeding to pin 7, goes to the 85 part of the activation coil of the relay. Just ground 86, and then you want keyed power going to 30. And like I said, that just enables power to route at all times to pin 46 until you touch the brake pedal. The relay activates and removes power from that terminal, making the ECM happy. I guess it wants to double verify that you're releasing the cruise control. That is pretty much the safeties, I guess you could call it, for the ECM. The next hoop to jump through is getting a vehicle speed signal routed from the transmission to the ECM. I tried wiring the vehicle speed sensor directly to the ECM, but since the 4200 is only used in automatic transmission vehicles, it does not send the VSS straight to the ECM. It is sent to the TCM, and the TCM shares it over the CAN bus. Although some other factory E67 vehicles like the CTSV and the Corvette do natively take the VSS to the ECM. I don't think the firmware in the 4200 ECM recognizes this. So the workaround I found was just to get a automatic transmission like 4L60E TCM, which I have right here. And it is just kind of a bare bones wiring job. It doesn't even have to be from a Trailblazer. I didn't have to program it. I think I just went on eBay and searched for like 08, 09 Trailblazer TCM and found that particular part number. And like the interchange is very, very broad. I think that came out of like a older Silverado of the same part number as the Trailblazer. But basically, you just pretty basic wiring. My first note here is about the CAN bus wires. There is a tan and tan with black tracer twisted pair, which is the CAN bus. I just spliced that into the wiring I had going to my OBD2 port. Pretty simple. There's a large black with a white tracer wire, just chassis ground. A small red with a white tracer wire, that's battery positive, battery hot all the time. Small pink wire, you want to be on keyed power. Then you have a purple with white tracer and a green with black tracer, which is a twisted pair. Just connect that directly to the vehicle speed sensor coming out of your transmission, which in my case was a AR5 from a Chevy Colorado. Then the final bit of wiring you have to do is the wires that originally come from the Prindle switch, just to tell the TCM you're in a forward gear. I think in my case, I figured if you ground the tan with white tracer, white wire, gray wire, and yellow wire, it will tell you the TCM that it's in third gear. Took me a while to figure that part out. But that is pretty much all the wiring on the TCM, and now I have the engine receiving vehicle speed. You may have to, probably not necessarily, fine tune it in HP tuners if you want it to read accurately, just for data logging, but really it should not matter how accurate it is, just for the function of cruise control. And finally, this is kind of universal, but just the wires to connect from your cruise control switch. Again, these are all in the same X1 connector, the smallest one in the E67, but you have the cruise on, which is just a gray wire, which is pin 30, just keyed positive. I think it doesn't even care. You can leave it to just keyed on all the time, or you can put it on a on-off switch that is also fed key power. Set coast is a dark blue wire, which goes to pin 22, which you could just do with a momentary toggle switch, feeding it ignition positive. Then you have resume or acceleration, I guess. Gray, black tracer, pin 21. Basically, momentary positive signal, just like the last circuit we described. I believe this might have been also a necessity. I had to go into HP tuners, into the transmission module, and turn off all the probably would be good to look in the engine controller as well, but turn off all the transmission related trouble codes, just because there's not actually there's a whole lot of open circuits in that TCM that are not used and probably reporting problems, which I think some will by default disable the function of cruise control. And if I'm not mistaken, I had to I can't remember if I experimented with this or had read it, that if you leave the in the engine controller, if you leave it in manual transmission mode, it will ignore all the cruise control functions. I had to put mine back into automatic transmission, the firmware. Seems to run and drive fine. The only thing I seem to possibly noticed is at cold start, the RPMs hang kind of high for the first maybe a mile, and then it settles down. But yeah, that's a little bit of wiring, a little bit of messing around, but that is how I got cruise control to work at last in my turbo 4200 swap G body. Hope that made some kind of sense. Thanks for watching.